Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today, we're going to follow up that Player Plus Telecaster review with the Stratocaster, just as I promised. Again, reminder, this is a sponsored review and demo by Fender. They have compensated me for making this review. I don't get to keep the guitar, I send it back afterwards. So this is like a first impression / what would I change about it, you know, just a general look at this guitar. I am not a dealer for Fender, I'm just a fan of the brand. So let's check this thing out. Just like with all the series, we get a pretty nice padded gig bag. It's not the cheap flimsy bag, like there's, you know, I would say a good inch or so of padding on each side. And it's zippered. But what I'm excited is to see this new color because, oh yeah, Fender got kind of crazy with this new series and I'm digging it. So our headstock, just like that last one, we get that metallic Fender logo, which is very reminiscent of the Fender Ultra series, but hey, check this thing out. This is such a 90s Strat, in my opinion. Like, you guys remember this cup over here? It's got like the same colors as that. I like this. Like, it's not traditional. Probably wouldn't be my first choice, but it would definitely be something I would want to add to like a collection of nice, weird, quirky colors. Like, I feel like this finish should move like it's a bottle of water or something. You guys know what I'm talking about, lava lamp-esque. But this new series is all about getting you guys a highly spec'd out guitar at a fairly affordable price point, usually around $1,000. So in case you missed my last Telecaster review and demo, you can check that out here to learn more about that. But just as a quick recap, there are two different Tele versions in this, an active P bass and an active jazz bass in 4 and 5 string variations on the jazz only. And then we've got the Stratocaster in HSS format like we're going to talk about today, and then there's also SSS. A little bit about the color schemes here. Starting with the SSS configuration, starting at $1,000, you have maple fretboards in 3-color sunburst, Olympic pearl, and tequila sunrise. It's like an interesting orange to red fade. But with Pal Faro fretboards, you can find the aged candy apple red like we saw in that Telecaster review, and opal spark. But when you step up to the humbucker version, you get a couple other additional options, and also cost you $30 more at $1029.99. So you've got 3-color sunburst, cosmic jade, silver burst, and the one we're talking about today is Belair Blue. Gonna have to get our fresh prints on with this one. So first impressions on this as far as a guitar goes. That neck, like it almost looks like roasted maple. I don't believe that's the actual spec, but that's that vibe. Like, I love how this one has so much ringwood grain. And on this color, the really pale Pal Faro fretboard, it kind of reminds me of like a surfboard. Generally, I like darker colored fretboards, but Fender has so much surf in their history that, you know, it kind of makes sense. And we even have a glossed over headstock, whereas the back of the neck is satin, so it's nice and comfortable. And once again, this one, just like the Telecaster, it's got rolled fretboard edges, locking tuners. This is a pretty highly spec'd out thing. And I'm interested to get to try this humbucker out because it looks like one of their wide-ranged humbuckers, but it's not. It's just a regular humbucker, just done up like that. And humbuckers are naturally noiseless, but the single coils in this run are also noiseless if you like that. And hey, we even have fancy electronics here to split that into a single coil if you're looking for some different tonal opportunities. So I'd say let's go ahead and throw this thing on the workbench and take an individual look at its parts and specs to get to know it better. Inside the Belair Blue Stratocaster from the Player Plus series, here's what we've got rocking here. Humbucker, single coil, humbucker routes. So if you wanted an HSH pickup setup, you can do it. You don't have to do any modifications to the body. It's all shielded off. Looks pretty nice, I would say, for the most part, except for, we gotta knock off a few points. They didn't completely round off the corners. We got some beardy, frizzly things here. Pretty easy to clean up on your own if you're really that bothered by it. But normally Fenders are really good about that, so that was a bit surprising. But there you can see your barcode, and here's your grounding tab. But now we're all here to see the electronics. So to make these single coils noiseless, they stack a coil on the back side of them. So this is a single coil, and up here is a single coil. And that kind of bucks the hum, similar to how a humbucker does it side by side. So they call these the Player Plus noiseless Stratocaster pickup, same thing that we saw in the Telecaster video in that middle position, so that one should sound pretty familiar. But then we have the Player Plus humbucking pickup in the bridge. So it's got Fender's logo there, kind of looks like the wide range humbucker as I was saying earlier. But there you can see what it looks like on the back for each of these. You've got your shielding here, regular barcode stuff going on. And then some fancy electronics, push-pull pot and then 2 regular pots here. And it's all hand wired. It looks like pretty high quality pots in here too. And here's what your output jack looks like. You will notice there's nothing in the cavity here, so you can see that alder body very easily. Nice. But now that we know about the electronics, let's learn about their readings within the circuit. So our bridge pickup reads just about 8K ohms, our middle pickup reads 10.99, and our neck position reads 10.65. Again, the reason why this has a really high resistance rating is because it's got the double coil to make it noiseless. They're not going to be quite that hot sounding, but of course you can also have your combination of the pickups here, so 5.43, and then these two guys together at 4.64. Now again, you do have one fancy push-pull pot right here. Kind of hard to get, I'll be honest, because that really rides up there. There's not much of a ledge to grab, so you just kind of have to get the grippers the best you can. But it's not like the Telecaster where it brings the neck pickup into whatever position you're at. That's just a coil split for your bridge position, so that makes it kind of single coil-esque. So you can have SSS and HSS if you wish. But you have to remember that will also affect your 2 position because it has something to do with the bridge pickup. So that gives you a tonal opportunity of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tones. And as far as our tremolo system, you have 6 individual saddles right here. You adjust the intonation using the ones down there, and you can adjust the height right here. And it is one of the 2-point tremolo systems. I personally like those. They look a little bit more modern, and they function really well. But before we move on from the body, let's really take a second to look at the Belair Blue finish. So from right here, it just kind of looks like a white Stratocaster, like maybe Olympic white. It still has a little bit of a blue hue to it. I mean, maybe it's because we're right next to blue here, but even if you cut that off, it has a slight blue tint to it. It's not perfectly white, but then it moves into that really gradual aqua blue before getting into that deep sea Baltic blue. So if you like blue and ice cream, this is the guitar for you. It just, again, reminds me of that cup. It kind of reminds me of like an iceberg or something like that, a wintry scene. I could see somebody playing this for a Christmas gig or something. Just paint your headstock red. But moving on from that alder body, we have a maple neck that has a satin finish, whereas everything else on this guitar is gloss, including the headstock, as we'll see in a moment. But here's where things get fun. This is a Pau-Ferro fretboard, as we were discussing earlier. It's got 22 frets that are medium jumbo in style. And you can see it's one of those fretboards that hang off the edge of the fret, so it kind of clamps down the pick guard. But just like that Telecaster, it has a flat radius of 12 inches. So Strats, I mean, they'll measure anywhere between 7.5 up to 16 if you're doing compound radiuses. But this one, they just decided to go straight up with 12. So it's pretty flat for a Stratocaster. And of course, 25.5-inch scale length, nothing funny there. This is what the fretboard looks like after I conditioned it. I mean, it darkened up a little bit, but, if I was expecting, regular Stratocaster dark fretboard, I would be disappointed. But I'm starting to come to appreciate this light one because it almost looks like just a roasted maple neck at the side profile view. It's kind of cool. But that's not what this is at all. But here's a nice look at the rolled fretboard edges that they're also doing to mimic a vintage worn-in guitar. It is pretty comfortable, but it's a very flat feeling fretboard with the neck being kind of small. Our synthetic bone nut measures 1.69 inches and turns into 2.03 at the 12th. The modern C neck profile shape starts at 0.88 at the first fret neck depth and stays consistent at 0.88 by the 12th. Here's what that looks like at the first fret and the 12th fret. Definitely C-shaped, it just gets a little bit wider as you go up. Something I like about this fretboard is there's a little bit of flame figuring in it. Like you can see it changes colors in the light. Here you can see when I had some conditioning treatment on it, it kind of showed it even more so. So kind of cool surfer vibes. But, you know, if you were expecting something super dark, you're probably going to be disappointed. But then again, each and every one of these examples is going to be different. Moving on to the headstock, once again, that's a nice glossy finish. You get the metallic Fender logo here. You get the black capped off truss rod cavity right here. Single string tree and locking tuners that we'll see on the back. Moving on to the backside, again, you can see the alder body. Thankfully, we can actually see it's at least 2 pieces right there. You can see a pretty clear seam line. And this is what the trem system looks like stock from the factory. You have 3 springs and a pretty large block. It's not a magnetic material, but it's large and has a number 2 on it. That's about all I can tell you. I think I like the view of the back of this better. Now it's starting to remind me of like 90s sweatpants styles. The front, it kind of hides some of that burst with that kind of off-white mint green-esque pick guard that they've got going on. Whereas the back, I mean, it just really lets you have it. Well, that's also because I have the cover off of it. Maybe that's what it is. But yeah, that's pretty cool. Same issues as on that Telecaster though. The plastic that they use to protect that neck plate, it leaves like a residue and it's really, really difficult to clean off. I'm sure that's going to annoy dealers and people who buy these things brand new, but eventually all that'll get worn off. I don't have any issues like with the one that was on the humbucker or anything, so I don't know if they use a different kind for that, but just kind of an annoyance. But it's like the same thing with the pick guards. Like normally it'll get stuck around the screws and whatnot, so it's just something you have to live with. But you've got your strap buttons in your regular locations at the top horn and at the bottom right there, and you get the regular Stratocaster comfort cut. So I would say the Telecaster has more different for it if you're looking for something highly spec'd out. Like this is just a Stratocaster with locking tuners and a bridge humbucker with fancy electronics. They didn't quite have to change as much for these guys. But nice tinted neck. They decided to do the skunk stripe construction for these. And once again, love that ringage on this one. That's looking good. 2021 serial number with a Made in Mexico decal. 75th anniversary of Fender this year. And locking tuners. Just in case you don't know what locking tuners are, basically you take the string, you pull it taut, and then you tighten them down and it locks it into place. That gets rid of the need of having to have any type of windings on there. So in theory, you should stay in tune better. But if you know how to properly wind your strings, I mean, it doesn't really give you much more advantage other than it's faster to change strings on these and easier. All said and done, this is kind of a chunky Stratocaster, just a hair over 8 pounds. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how it sounds. All right, let's go ahead and walk through the tones. If you want to watch somebody skillfully play one, check out Mary Spender or someone like that. They also got these guitars. They got to check them out and play them through their rigs and skillful hands. I'm just a tone demo guy. Let's start with our neck position here with some basic chords. Now we'll try that middle position. Now just that bridge humbucker. We'll do that same one, I like that. Have their own unique sounds to them. So that neck pickup, I haven't been a big fan of noiseless pickups in the past. I feel it kind of takes away some of the spank, but this is still a nice mellow tone to it. But still has some character to it. And that bridge pickup really gets fat. But I come to find I really like that middle position on this one. Right, now we'll try the in-between positions. So we got these guys. Nice and funky. And now we'll try that bridge in this middle. See if it's also funky. Not quite as funky. Has just a bit more bite to it. But don't forget, we can also coil split it if you can get that knob up. So here it is, just the coil split bridge. So far, that sounds so ridiculously thin, I'm not sure if I like it. Let's try comparing that to like the neck pickup. Middle pickup. Split bridge. Very thin. That might sound good with distortion though, so we'll see how that goes. Now we'll try these two together and we'll compare it to full on and humbucked. So here it is, regular. Okay, so those are some pretty interesting clean tones. I would say I'm impressed for the most part. I mean, not so much the split single coil, but everything else. As a new take on the noiseless pickups, okay. Pleasantly surprised. Let's try it with some distortion now. Now that we know all about the new Player Plus Stratocaster in the Belair Blue finish, what are my final thoughts on this thing? it plays and sounds very, very good. Like, this might start cutting into the USA sales. The only thing I can really complain about is the fretboard just looks a bit goofy, and it takes some time to get used to. It was not my favorite at first sight, but, you know, I've kind of grown onto it just because of the whole kind of carameled over look that this guitar has when you're playing it. You can kind of see that at the edge when you're looking down at it while you're playing. The pickups, pleasantly surprised. Not a big fan of the coil split, but hey, it's there if you happen to need it. I really love that humbucker. It sounds very good and convincing. So if you need a very versatile Stratocaster, this is that. But it really comes down to this neck profile. It's pretty thin, it's got some roundedness to it, but like if you're a traditional shred type guy, I think you would even like this too. That flat radius on this guitar feels good in my hands. Now sure, we don't have any fancy heel cuts back here, but honestly, you don't really need it unless you think you're playing all the way up here all the time. For me, this is perfectly acceptable as is. I'm very impressed for the price point of this guitar. And I really wasn't thinking too much of this when they asked me to review it. I just thought, okay, another Made in Mexico Players Series guitar. Let's see how it is. Pleasantly surprised is what I'm gonna say. If nothing else, try one out at a store, because I think you will fall in love with the way that this neck feels. But the locking tuners are a great feature. Nice finishes, super comfortable to play. Love the rolled fretboard edges. I would personally recommend checking one of these things out. The only thing that would have made it better is if it would have had some sort of a case, but you can get one for like, what, 150 bucks extra? At $1,000, I think it is a solid pickup. Pretty much the only downside I could say to this QC-wise, I mean, you had some of those furries in there, but that's easily cleaned up. But this seems to be a running issue on Made in Mexico Fenders. The nut slots aren't getting slotted enough, like the high E string especially on this one. You hear that sitar-like ring? That's because this needs to be widened out just a hair. I don't have my nut files with me today, so I just demoed it as is, but just know, you might need to buy yourself a set of nut files. I mean, it's easy enough, just go zoop, 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 and you're good to go. But that does seem to happen quite often, so maybe that's something Fender could look into. As far as tuning stability, I was happy with it. But then again, I also blocked off the trem because I'm not much of a trem user. That, and I find this knob just way too hard to do that. I think a push-push would have worked better for Stratocaster-style knobs. The Telecaster we did last time, that was way easier to do that on because it's a metal knurled knob. So if I was going to gig this, I would probably swap the knob out on that one, because once your hands are sweaty, there's no way you're going to be able to get that. Especially if you had to do this in a pretty quick manner. Which one did I prefer? Hands down the Stratocaster. I mean, if I was judging it as a Stratocaster, maybe I would have liked it just a hair better, but yeah, this is the clear winner in my eyes. And normally, I prefer Telecasters over Strats, so kind of a nice surprise. So, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed learning about the new Fender Player Series Stratocaster with me today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.